I'm Lenny Rashid, and this is Africa Focus. Welcome to the magazine show that not only entertains you, but also keeps you informed. Let's take a look at some of the stories we've prepared for you today.
The Ugandan government seizes ivory and Pangolian scales worth an estimated $8 million. Refusing to be cowed, an enterprising businessman opens the country's first dairy factory. And finally, no board game. We play Madagascar's enduring Fanorona Mania board game.
Before we get into the main stories, let's take a look at the news that made the headlines around the continent.
Somalia's Al-Shabaab militants on Monday shot dead the Maltese manager of a port while detonating a car bomb in the capital, which killed 9 people and wounded several others. In a deadly day for the restive nation, a gunman shot Maltese national Paul Anthony Formosa, manager of the port Bosaso in semi-autonomous Puntland state, for P&O Ports, a subsidiary of the Dubai-based DP World. Shortly thereafter, a powerful explosion from a car bomb rocked the busy Hamarwain market in the capital Mogadishu, killing 9 people, with the latest attack from the Al-Qaeda affiliate plaguing the country. The Dubai government confirmed the death in a statement on Twitter and said the circumstances of the incident was being investigated. Tens of thousands of people turned out as President Muhammadu Buhari boisterous campaign bandwagon rolled into northern Nigeria's biggest city, Kano. Buhari and his main challenger Atiku Abubakar are fiercely bidding for the votes in the country's second biggest city and a center of commerce and learning for centuries. But crowd sizes are an unreliable indicator of political support in Africa's most populous nation, where by and large, no one does anything for free. Parties are known to drum up support at rallies with cash, food and free transport. Some even expect the same people to turn out this week for Abubakar. There are only about 5.5 million registered voters in the entire state, he pointed out. The government of the Central African Republic and 14 armed groups have inked a new peace accord seeking to end years of fighting that have left thousands of people dead. It was initialed by President Faustin Archange Touadera for the CAR government and representative of militias which control most of the chronically troubled country. The agreement, brokered by African Union after 18 months of exploratory work and sponsored by the UN, is the 8th attempt in almost 6 years to forge peace in a country stricken by turmoil and poverty. Thousands of people have been killed and a quarter of the population of 4.5 million have fled their homes. The UN says unrest has driven so many people from their farms that hundreds of thousands are at risk of famine. In South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa has told investors that prosecutions will be made following the inquiry into allegations of state capture. He added that those found guilty will face prison time. Ramaphosa was speaking during a brief appearance at an event hosted by ENS Africa on the sidelines of the Mining Indaba 2019 on Tuesday. He emphasized to investors that South Africa and the African continent are destinations that offer great value. Ramaphosa also noted that African leaders will be gathering in Addis Ababa in a few days to try and perfect the Africa Free Trade Agreement signed in the past. The Confederation of African Football said on Tuesday that it is confident emergency host country Egypt will be ready to stage this year's Africa Cup of Nations despite limited preparation time. CAF has been inspecting various infrastructure and facilities across the country. Egypt was awarded the hosting rights in January, following the decision to strip Cameroon of the final due to delays in preparation. It will be the 4th time that Egypt has hosted the tournament, while Cameroon will host the 2021 event instead. A CAF delegation has visited stadiums in Cairo, Suez, Ismailia, Port Said and Alexandria, with organizers yet to decide on the host stadia. Since the 2011 Egyptian revolution, the country's football league have been plagued by violence. The 2019 Cup of Nations will be the first to feature 24 countries since the decision to expand from 16 teams.
Ugandan authorities have seized 750 pieces of ivory and thousands of pangolin scales worth $8 million that were being smuggled from neighboring South Sudan. It is one of the largest seizures of wildlife contraband in the East African country. According to the Ugandan Revenue Authority, two Vietnamese nationals are in custody over the contraband that has been concealed inside pieces of timber carried by 3 freight containers.
The Ugandan government has seized a shipment of ivory and pangolin scales. This is the largest haul that the country has ever captured. Its market value is estimated to be more than $8 million. The haul originated in the Democratic Republic of Congo and passed through South Sudan before entering Uganda at a crossing on its northern border.
This concealment for this consignment would not take an ordinary eye to be able to actually discover how it was concealed. This is because when you look at the actual pieces of wood and timber, you would not even see that they are actually tampered with. To the extent that one of the suspects whom we have is a professional carpenter.
Ugandan authorities started monitoring the cargo from the border when it was on its way to the capital of Kampala on January 24th. The elephant tusks and pangolin scales were concealed in hollowed-out logs packed in 3 containers. Ugandan authorities have stepped up monitoring and seizures of contraband harvested from endangered wildlife as criminals collude with corrupt police to smuggle cargo from Congo and South Sudan, where state authority is fragile.
What we are told is that this pangolin particularly is very, very expensive. It's estimated that from one pangolin, the worth of the scales you get is about $100,000. So what we have here in our boxes is that in that one container, we're able to get about 423 kilograms of the pangolin.
The shipment was headed for Vietnam. 2 Vietnamese men were detained in connection with the alleged transfer of the wildlife trove.
It's a huge kind of consignment. We believe that it's an international network of other people who are involved. We are actually doing an end-to-end investigation, including our collaboration with our colleagues in the DRC, to be sure that we are able to come to terms with whoever actually got involved in this kind of consignment.
Elephant tusks, rhino horn, pangolin scales and other such goods produced and trafficked through East and Central Africa are typically shipped to Asia, where they fetch thousands of dollars per kilo for use in ornaments and medicine.
In northern Ethiopia, near the Eritrean border, the Irob people are worried that their lands will soon return to Eritrea in exchange for peace. After the war of 1998 to 2000 on the delimitation of the border, an independent international commission determined that certain cities of the region belonged to Eritrea, but Ethiopia has never wanted to acknowledge the decision.
Alatena, a few kilometers from the Eritrean border, people are worried. This region in northern Ethiopia is mostly inhabited by the Irob people. Since the Prime Minister's decision to respect the border decided by the UN, residents are afraid their families will be separated.
This decision will divide the population. If brothers are separated, that will be a problem. I don't think peace will come.
The signals for peace between the two countries were greeted with enthusiasm in the capital, Addis Ababa, but here in Irob territory, a rare bastion of European Catholicism, there are fears of further conflict with Eritreans.
We want peace, but we believe it shouldn't come by giving away land. It should be like before, when borders were not a source of conflict.
So far, no land has changed hands. For some Irob, peace is a sign of opportunity. By opening the roads between the two countries, trade could be revived. For others, it's a chance to find family members missing since the conflict.
Since we heard the news, we have been glued to our television. If the two countries really make peace, maybe even my husband will come back.
Nguze's husband was arrested by Eritrea after being accused of giving food to Ethiopians during the war, and she never saw him again. Cautiously hopeful, the Irob people yearn for the days when they could freely cross between their now artificially divided valleys.
Gingo on Lake Victoria is barely a quarter of a hectare in size, with its residents crammed into a tiny hodgepodge of corrugated iron homes. There's little else but a few bars, brothels and a tiny port. Nevertheless, for over a decade, Migingo has been a source of tension between Uganda and Kenya, who have been unable to decide to whom it really belongs.
This tangle of makeshift shelters on a piece of rock on Lake Victoria bustles with activity. Hundreds of fishermen from across East Africa have made the land their home. Their island may be small, but Kenya and Uganda have been arguing over it for a decade.
This is Kenya. They are telling us not to put the flag here and rather have it on the other island because they claim the island is theirs. What should we do?
Migingo's strategic interest grew in the early 2000s as fish became increasingly scarce along the shores of Africa's largest lake. This led Kenya and Uganda to send police to the island to restore order, sparking tensions between the two countries. Despite the dispute over land ownership, fishing binds the community together.
The reason I came here was that a long time ago in 2006, there were lots of people and fish was in abundance. My friends who were based here used to come back home with a lot of goodies, and that's what drew me to come work here.
Kenyan fishermen and local politicians have called for the government to seek help from the UN's top court to resolve the matter. The move is worrying for the island's occupants, who just want to make a living.
The Kenyans like arguing, saying this is Kenya. We don't know who owns this island. We've only come here to make money, and that's why we left our homes. If one feels like they've had enough, they just leave the island and someone else comes in to try and earn a living. But there are some Kenyan brothers and sisters who like inciting people to fight here.
Kenya and Uganda have since created a joint commission to determine who owns the island, using maps dating from before independence. While waiting for the question to be settled, the island is co-managed by the forces of the two countries.
Coming up after the break.
No board game. We play with some of Madagascar's best players, the enduring Fanorona Mania board game.
Welcome back to Africa Focus here on Switch TV. Starting a dairy farm in Mogadishu was not an obvious choice. Islamist bombs go off with startling regularity. Electricity is patchy and expensive, and most Somalis don't drink fresh milk. But after 25 years living in exile, Abdukadir Salah decided to go against the grain by establishing his own factory in Mogadishu.
After 25 years in exile in Britain, Abdukadir Mohamed Salad has returned to Somalia, where he is taking on the challenge of popularizing fresh cow's milk. The entrepreneur is braving the constant threat of terrorist attacks in Mogadishu to launch his factory.
One of our main challenges is insecurity. Sometimes my van can't deliver milk to customers because security forces block the streets for security reasons.
The Irman Dairy Factory pasteurizes and packs 2,000 liters of milk per day. In Somalia, powdered cow's milk and camel's milk are preferred over fresh cow's milk, which is generally considered unhealthy. But Salad is ready to change his compatriots' eating habits.
Fresh milk is very good. Our customers are starting to consume it. When we place an order, the milk is delivered on time, and the owners of this company are very involved with the local community.
The factory buys its milk from other companies in Mogadishu that raise cows like these and produce their own yogurt. For the herd's owner, business is going rather well.
At the beginning, we brought 6 cows, but now we have 54. Some were bought and others were born here. We now produce 600 litres a day.
These entrepreneurs aim to popularize fresh cow's milk and encourage local production rather than imports, all the while boosting the local economy. Irman Dairy has already anticipated the increase in demand for dairy products and would soon like to increase its production 5-fold.
The issue of land reform in South Africa is a hot topic that most people in the Rainbow Nation might have an opinion about. But according to artist Sethembile Msezane, the topic of land reform in her country is directly linked to ancestral values, since their very remains are part of the landscape imbued with their spirits. Take a look.
Sethembile Msezane is a sculptor and installation artist. But more than that, she is also a performance artist. This is one of her videos where she speaks of the soapstone birds that were historically taken from Great Zimbabwe and eventually returned. However, today we explore the life of Sethembile as a photographer. We managed to attend one of her shows, dubbed Speaking Through Walls, at the Tyburn Gallery in London.
Showing my work here in London does mean that there's a different audience, but it doesn't mean that no one can necessarily connect with the work. Within the work, there are traces of people finding their own humanity, of finding solitude within a landscape, but also of finding self and reflections that happen within these spaces.
Her work shows images of either South Africa or Zimbabwe. Here we see 2 photographs from among her work which show the living Sethembile accompanied by her spirit embodiment in a boat on a body of water, free from all connection with a particular country. Sethembile's encounters with her own ancestors, whether in dreams or as part of her daily life, informs much of her work.
This body of work kind of surfaces in a time where South Africa is having conversations around land reform and changing the constitution to allow for land reform. And so, in part, this body of work speaks about this ushering in of the ancestral or spiritual realm, speaking to issues of land, because the land is where the bones of our ancestors, our rituals and our traditions are.
While dreams and encounters with spirits influence the overall themes of her work, the success of each picture is supported by its relevance to a new moral order that South Africa is striving to achieve.
I love her work. It is, there's a very good interplay with her spirituality and the forefathers and where she comes from and the roots, her roots, and also the politically charged circumstances under which she takes the photographs, where she places herself and how she places herself.
Some of the photographs are printed onto antique mirrors so that the viewer sees themselves reflected in the glass, as well as glimpsing the images printed onto the looking glass.
To be able to come out of my home and come and kind of relate to something that is quite, for me, is quite personal as well, because I come from I'm shamanic, a family background. So to be able to come here and kind of relate, with the artist's own kind of world, her own dreams, her own kind of ancestry, and kind of see something that is also quite meaningful for me. It's quite healing.
While Sethembile's work is selling well in Africa and London, it is still an open question as to whether her respect and love for the ancestors will catch on in Europe.
Nestled high in the mountains of Lesotho, skiers and snowboarders from across the globe rub shoulders in one of Africa's leading ski resorts. Despite its smaller size, Afriski hopes to be the springboard for Lesotho's first Winter Olympian.
Skiing and snowboarding are bucket list items for many people. But for those looking for a truly unique experience, look no further than the Maluti Mountains. It looks like any other ski resort, but it's on the southern tip of Africa. Afriski is nestled in Lesotho's stunning mountains at a height of 3,222 meters above sea level. It's also pulling in winter sports enthusiasts from across the world, despite only having 1 kilometer of piste. Thomas Frontoni left behind the established resorts of his native France to work here as an instructor.
Ski and snowboarding in South Africa, it's amazing. There are just 2 resorts in South Africa. And why not? It's opportunity to meet new people, visit new country.
This unlikely resort also hosts South Africa's only Olympic alpine skier. Connor Wilson trains here a few weeks every year, and despite its size, he believes the venue has great potential.
Yeah, AfriSki has been a great help in my training. I don't think I would have got to the Winter Olympics without them. So obviously being in Southern Africa, our resorts are not as big as mountains overseas, but I think considering the fact that we are in Africa, I think that they've done a tremendous job.
AfriSki is not only growing its international clientele, but also cultivating skiers from Lesotho.
You know, it gives the guys an opportunity to try and ski and snowboard. And at the same time, you know, the school programs that we're doing for our local kids here, it's making a very good awareness that skiing can actually be done by anyone.
One up-and-coming skier is 10-year-old Tabang Mubari, who started skiing here when he was 3. His father, Ernest, has been working at AfriSki since 2003 and was part of the original team that built the resort. He now hopes his son will one day follow in Wilson's Olympic footsteps.
I dream that one day can be like him because he's training together with him sometimes. Yes, and then he learned him how to ski very well. So I hope maybe one day can be a big champ of skis.
Whatever snowy path Tabang chooses, the AfriSki team are hopeful that someone will one day fly Lesotho's flag at the Winter Olympics.
Fanarona, a strategy game similar to chess, has been played in Madagascar since the 14th century. However, it's very complex, combining ancestral wisdom and mathematics. The game is considered sacred and a part of Madagascar's identity and intangible cultural heritage.
Where he's going, all 80-year-old Andre needs is a bottle of stones. These and a basic playing board traced out by hand form the basis of the Malagasy game Fanarona. At least 7 centuries old, it remains a popular pastime.
Yes, I drew that. I can't engage in any more physical effort. But Fanarona at least lets me use my brain.
It's a complex game of strategy, with each player aiming to capture their opponent's 22 pieces. Players insist the rewards go beyond just the winning.
Fanarona teaches you to anticipate, to persevere. It gives you strength to face life. It makes you brave.
And now there's Fanarona, the video game. Created here in Madagascar, it's been downloaded over 30,000 times since its launch 4 years ago.
One download in Argentina, 1 in China, 2 in France, 2 in Germany, 3 in the United States, and I was pleasantly surprised. I feel we're getting closer to our goal when we created Fanarona, which is to make it global.
Fanarona even featured in the hit action-adventure game series Assassin's Creed in 2012 and 2013. But on the streets of Antananarivo, the ancient form of the game still has its followers, both young and old.
On this show, we love hearing from you, so make sure you get interactive with us on our various social media pages. From the entire team here at Africa Focus and the wonderful journalists across the continent who made this show possible, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.